everybody.
Good
And welcome to our March Economic Development Authority meeting as we all get used to the new time change.
Yes.
Somebody changes, but we're here and that's a great thing. And I thank you for being here. We'll start up with our roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Bailey, Mr. Hines,
Present.
Ms. Jiggets,
Present.
Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Ms. Lucas Burke,
Here.
Mr. Thomason,
Here.
Mr. Thompson, you do have a quorum.
Great. We have an introduction. Our Economic Development Authority Department has grown by another member, and Ms. Butler will introduce.
I'm pleased to formally introduce you. I think I sent an email out on her first day, but to formally introduce Stephanie France to you. Stephanie comes to us with a wealth of economic development experience. She has worked for the State Economic Development Partnership. She started Dinwiddie County's program. She's worked for the Tobacco Commission and most recently ran the incentives program with the Virginia Port Authority. So we're very excited to have Stephanie France with us and her 16 plus years experience in economic development, and she's been with us now going on almost a month. She started February 22nd and hit the ground running.
Well, welcome, Stephanie. Thank you for being here with us today.
My apologies for being late.
We just talked about our bodies getting adjusted to the new time change.
I just got it from Florida, so.
Okay, we're gonna take a look at now minutes from the February 16th meeting, and our commissioners have had an opportunity to review them already. So if you see any changes that need to be noted, we'll hear them now. If there are none, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
So moved. Second.
And I apologize, the second was,
Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Bailey,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Lucas Burke,
Yes.
Mr. Thomason.
Yes.
Motion carries, minutes are approved.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll look now at our financials for February 2016, and we'll hear from Ms. Kelly.
Good morning. I'd like to go over our balance sheet for the month of February. We had a total current assets of $2,627,000. Our capital assets are $1.763 million. Our total other assets are $10,235,395, and our total assets are $14,625,956. For our liabilities, we have accounts payable of $4,000, and our total liabilities are total $4,778. Our net position total $14,621,177, and our total liabilities and net position equal our total net assets of $14,625,956. For our statement of net position, we have operating expenses for the month of February that includes stormwater fees of $2,800, grounds maintenance and utilities of $1,300, indirect cost allocation of $341 for a total of $4,548. Our non-operating income includes miscellaneous refunds of $282 and investment income of $402 for a total non-operating income of $685. So there was a change in net position of a negative $3,863, which will total our net position of $14,621,177. There was no local incentive programs payments for the month of February.
Commissioners, are there any questions? I have one, total buildings we listed. Do we have total land? I mean, was land listed somewhere?
Land is $1,421,882.
Even glasses on. Right above. Okay, Commissioners, if there are no questions or any other concerns, I entertain a motion for us to approve. We did have some comment last meeting. Commissioner Jiggets inquired about if we needed needed to approve the minutes or if we needed to submit them for audit. And there is nowhere in our bylaws, check with, council, that stated that we had to approve them. Is that correct?
Correct, I mean, it's to be part of the monthly agenda, but it doesn't specifically say approve. Now, Ms. Jacobs had a follow-up question about how it's done, with PPIC, for example. My understanding, Mallory can probably speak better historically, my understanding is PPIC does it essentially the way EDA had done it up until last meeting. In other words, considering and approving financials on a monthly basis.
That's right, and then they know that those will be rolled up into the annual audit, and then they, receive the annual report from the auditor, and then approve the audit once, they're all 12 months are fully audited as part of the annual audit. So that's how that body does it.
And have some ideas I'd like to present about the financials and how we do that during our retreat. To help clarify that, so I would move that we receive the financials as presented.
Is there a
Subject to audit.
Correct.
The statement should say, if you're gonna do it this way, receive it, subject to audit. Subject to audit, if you receive the
I'll amend my
financial
motion
subject
as
to
such.
audit.
Is there a second?
So I don't think I understand it.
I don't either, that's what I'm trying to.
Can we
There was a-
explain that one more time?
Readiness. The financials we take in, we review, not to approve them forever and, to not look back at them. Allows us to review them, as they are subject to audit in the event that there's something we missed, that we could go back and,
I believe it was phrased in Ford for audit last year, I don't know if that's, or last month rather. So in other words, you're accepting the financials that are presented and sending them to the auditor without formally approving the monthly financials.
But that audit will not take
They don't
place
go
until
in.
next year. It's the annual audit, they're not they're not audited monthly,
Monthly.
they're audited on an annual basis.
No, we understand that, but otherwise, because I went back over the previous minutes, and we've always taken a vote on the financials. But it came up for discussion last time, whether or not the vote was required, if you would recall that.
And I don't believe the vote is required, is that correct?
And that was the only thing.
Has the body acted on them? Are we no longer
No.
voting on the financials?
No, we have not.
We're
We have not.
discussing it.
Oh, this is a discussion, I thought there was a motion.
okay, we have a, question.
I just have a statement.
Say,
The financials that are submitted from finance, if you look at the top of the statement, it always says unaudited. That's in every report and everything that you get. The audits are done annually, so will not be done until next year. But every statement you get, we upfront and in the documents let the commission know they're unaudited.
Right, and I think, we understand that the concern is, do we need to vote? What, because we've always, according to the previous minutes, they've always voted.
The commission would, when it's presented from finance, has to accept what finance is putting before you. So if it's a vote of approval that you're receiving her unaudited report, which she presents it and documents it as unaudited, you must accept it. So that's an approval of accepting what she's reported to you. But it still is unaudited until the audit is done. You have
Sure.
right.
so we are, body, commissioners, I guess we need to, formally have a discussion, thank you, Aaron, Commissioner Kelly, that, we accept which direction we wanna continue to go in. Do we want to continue to vote for approval, or do we want to vote for, this accepting as written?
That's why I said we receive as presented. That's what we're doing. We are receiving the financials as presented. We're not approving, we're not disapproving, we're not auditing, unauditing, we're not saying they're free of error. We're not doing any of that. We're saying we receive them as presented. If questions are brought up during the meeting that need adjustments, we send them back to the finance department. They bring them back to the next meeting if they can't answer them here.
So now there's no vote then?
Well,
That's basically.
You have to, if it's approved, you have to go.
we're receiving.
Yeah,
The
we
vote is to
receive.
receive them.
You're agreeing that you
To
received
receive
them,
them, and that we do have this month.
that you actually got them and received them.
But, it needs to be clear that we are not approving the unaudited ones that we're receiving. That's why I was saying we need to have that caveat subject to final audit.
Which is,
That's,
which now is
because,
listed. Because it says it on the top of the statement that is unaudited, so.
right, but that doesn't go in the minutes, see, we've got to,
Perhaps, an idea for a motion could be receive as presented the unaudited monthly, financials, because the individual month is not going forward for audit, it's the annual that would go forward for audit, so.
right,
Correct.
we understand that.
So rather than saying that the monthly is subject to annual audit, saying receive as presented the unaudited monthly report for February.
So we're voting that yes, we received the financials.
That's
Correct,
exactly what
that's
you're doing.
about it, just receiving it, not approving them.
Commissioner
And I guess, my final question would be to Jeff, are you sure about this? That this is,
Yeah, that's what our bylaws say.
above reproach in terms of our duties on this authority?
In the concept of receiving versus formally approving.
Formal approval, yes.
I'm comfortable that you don't have to formally approve on a.
I'm sorry, could you speak a little louder?
I'm comfortable that you don't have to formally approve on a monthly basis. And it's sufficient to accept, to receive.
Okay, Commissioner, so we've heard the kind of discussion, it is, in our bylaws, and we are in order to formally, accept, as printed, the unaudited, so we have, a motion on the
receive the
floor,
financials as presented.
and we have a second by
Second.
Commissioner Hines.
Can you repeat the motion, please, for me?
To receive the financials as presented.
Okay, I still have an unread list. Ms. Warren, with the Housing Authority Board, how do they do it?
They do not formally approve on a monthly basis.
What does the verbiage say?
We don't address it at all with any type of vote or resolution.
But they do receive financials monthly?
No, we do a monthly update, since we have so many different programs. And so
Okay.
we'll do a budget update on a single or a few programs to the board, and that's all it is.
It's just curious, I'm so sorry.
All right, Commissioners, there is a motion on the floor, there is a second. Are we ready for the votes?
Who's the second?
Commissioner Hines. Okay, are we ready for the vote?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great, I'm sorry.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries and the financials are received as presented.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just would like to, so that we don't hold up the meeting, I do believe I have some ideas. I shared them with Ms. Bailey with Ms. Jiggets and Mr. Kelly prior to the meeting, to maybe able to address this concern moving forward, and I think it'll be something that we should carry into our retreat.
Okay.
So we feel, I think Ms. Jiggets, I don't know, you're gonna have a higher level of financial oversight is what you're hoping to do, is that what you're trying to accomplish, or feel more confident that the financials are in line?
Well, it goes back to historically, how the authority has handled, approval before. And so, anytime you change lanes, you have to, you wanna be assured that, the lane change is appropriate. So that was, the concern, more the discussion.
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank
You okay? All right. Okay, we'll move now in our agenda to old business, and first up is our Renaissance Garage, and we'll hear an update from Council Miller.
Sure. We had two staff meetings on the Renaissance this month, on the Renaissance Garage. As you may recall, we have until the end of June to negotiate a new form of parking operating agreement for the garage over there. We had one meeting where unfortunately the head of the engineering department wasn't able to be there, but that gave us an opportunity to brief our new CFO, Ms. Kelly. And then in the second meeting, Ms. Kelly unfortunately got caught up with budget things, so we got to get some thoughts from engineering on it. We have a third meeting scheduled for this afternoon on the Renaissance, and the goal is to try and get some sort of staff recommendation as far as structurally how to proceed, present that to the manager's office and the board, and proceed from there. We did receive word from the Renaissance that the gentleman in charge of the asset, the Renaissance asset for the ownership company, he got switched out, so we have a new gentleman there, but I had an email from him and he is engaged and knows that we need to resolve the situation in the near term.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you have not yet been able to gather all of the required decision makers at the table at the same time, is that correct?
We're looking to do that this afternoon.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Hey, Joe, at some point, can you, I'm sorry, let me,
Yeah, Councilman Chair,
let me disrespect Mr. Give if not today, some point in time, a little lesson on what the real deal is with the Renaissance ownership, city, Marriott.
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure that there's probably not anybody around this table who's totally clear,
Yes.
unless you are.
No.
Okay. So if we could get that, that would be
Yes.
most helpful.
That is the other piece that we're trying to coordinate as well. is get that
Because
kind
you
of
mentioned that
update.
before, Councilman Cherry, that you wanted
Yeah.
to see that, and so this is now March. So we need to have that by the April meeting. We need to know.
but it might not be
Be ready
that
by
you're able
April.
to obtain that information
Not that this- I'm
if they
talking about
are
the ownership.
changing guards.
Well, the big piece of it is, what does Portsmouth actually, we're on the conference center in the parking garage, what's the setup as far as payment, repayment, profit sharing, wherever it is? Those things have been muddy since 2000 and, when was it built, 5? I wasn't on council, of course, but I was serving on a commission that had a look on it, that toured it when it first opened. And I was on planning commission at the time, I never understood it. So, I know you were here, but do you?
No, it was strictly, Doug Smith and Massey who were the individuals. The point I wanted to make is that from the opening to present day, there has probably been changes and things done that Mr. Miller is trying to figure out. So what happened in 2000, or whenever it opened, to 2016, or that was in the 90s when all of that, late 90s, all of that negotiation. I feel that you've got a lot to sort out to find out where we really are now. He's probably even has to search for what was all the pieces from the onset. So to say or to think that, and he's struggling now trying to get all of the pieces at the table, and the Renaissance has already, since we started, changed a key player. It may take him a little longer than April next meeting to have everything.
We put millions of dollars in there.
We did put millions.
Millions.
Yes.
Millions.
Okay, we have,
I was gonna add, with respect to their rent on the conference center, and the other pieces, they are current. It shows up in the EDA annual audit every single year, and it shows up on the EDA financials each month. So with respect to the monthly, rental payments, they are current and have been current. I appreciate appreciate, yes, we
Yeah.
need a flow chart.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But I just wanna assure you
Yeah, 'cause that, I don't know
we've
what,
covered that piece.
yeah, so, I don't know what that is, and I probably should. But I got 6 colleagues who don't know either. So-
City manager was trying to figure it out
Right,
also.
exactly. So we have a lot of people that wanna know what's going on, and we did request that we have an ongoing update at each meeting, so, you know, I'm sure Council Miller would do his very best to bring whatever information he has back to us. Commissioner Hines has a.
Yes, thank you. I think it would be pertinent for those answers to come before this body takes action on any type of activity or any type of contract. I think it would just be very wise of us
Sure.
to do all of our due diligence before we take, even if we have to extend the 6 months,
Correct.
additional few more months, just so we can have a real good, clear picture of this whole thing.
Absolutely. Okay.
Well, let's keep in mind, time is swiftly passing. We started talking about this in, January. And it's now, we just want to say it's April, almost this year, so, I mean,
I completely understand.
Correct.
Just wanna make sure,
Yeah.
make sure
And
that
that's-
we're looking at this holistically though, instead of just in this one little piece.
no, no question, I'm on the same page with you all, because as Councilman Cherry has said at the last meeting, and the meeting before, you know.
Yeah, so maybe we would begin like, a puzzle of the flow chart. We put up what we do know.
That's right.
And then we continue to add arms as things, progress and as we find out more information. I think Commissioner Hines was one of the ones who advocated for a longer time, understanding the contract process and knowing that, you know, April will come quickly, for us in, remaining 2 months. So, thank you for the discussion
And we also have to be cognizant of what's going on in the city right now too, as budgets are being presented and deliberated and decided. Staff is gonna be preoccupied with this.
Chairman Burke, are you saying that, and I would be in concurrence with you, that at the April meeting, we need to see some type of flow chart, visual, that is going to show us some pieces to this?
Correct.
That, because I believe that's what you're saying, and I
Correct.
concur with that.
Yes.
Sure, I mean, I'm happy to provide something at the April meeting, as Mr. Hines said, there's a lot going on, so I'm not sure it's gonna be comprehensive at the April meeting, but I will provide something.
Appreciate the discussion, everyone. If we are all clear, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is the Midtown Parcel D4, and we'll get a update from Council Miller.
D4 is the last piece of the Midtown Marketplace out at the Kroger. And Cress EG has given their notice. I think the board was briefed on this last meeting. Maybe Ms. Butler has it.
Got a visual, I'll pull up here
Visual,
just to
okay.
remind everybody where it is.
It's relatively simple. This was all teed up in advance when we closed the first round and gave all the rest of the property, sold all the rest of the property to Cress EG. There was that one piece on the corner that was retained, and they have a Cox office coming in. And it's a great boon for the Development Authority to be able to convey that parcel, because I think there was a serious risk of it not being able to be conveyed and just sitting there vacant. So this is a boon. The closing will be before March 31st. The purchase price will be, it's based on a formula, but it'll be roughly $620,000 to $630,000 for that parcel. So it'll be a good, nice purchase price. We have a resolution. It's simply a resolution for the title company. It's going to be, for Cress EG, so they can issue title insurance knowing that the board formally authorized the actions necessary to deed the property over.
Don't you love it?
Technology.
Technology. That's it.
Mr. Miller, just for clarity, and just trying to bring it right back, that parcel actually was part of the original deal, and they backed it back out because they didn't feel like it was developable at all. So the fact they've come back is actually a win for us. I just want to, if some of us weren't here when that happened, that the deal was already made, and they actually came back and asked for an amendment on the original deal to parcel back out. So we didn't retain it, we were asked to retain it.
That's correct. And they also, with the original deal, got to withhold part of the purchase price to perform the site improvements on that parcel. So the original purchase price was lower, and now we're getting that money back as part of this proposal. So that's why it's a good solid purchase price.
Originally, I think gas pumps, they wanted to put them there, our body decided we didn't want them on the corner. And that's what slowed up their development for that corner. So in retrospect.
I know,
The reset button.
Makes me feel a little bit better that it's not me, because technology is not always my friend.
It works better if you stand on one foot.
I'm sure she's had to do that in the last 6 months.
I'd like to make a formal motion that the EDA purchase a projector.
Would you like me to read the resolution?
Yes, okay, we'll hear the resolution so that we can be updated.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
If I may? And I know you're saying this was from the original purchase, so is this based on the exact cost? Basically using the same exact formula from the first contract, is that what you're saying? Or is this a separate agreed to price and being treated as a separate transaction at a lower price or a higher price?
No, the basic transaction, I think it was 135,000 an acre, I think was the price out there. And this is about 1.9 acres, if I remember right. That 135 per acre is applying to the 1.9 acres, plus there was an amount withheld at the original closing for site work on that parcel, because the purchaser was doing site work on property that we own, but they wanted to set it up for ultimate development. Now, that money that they withheld from the original closing is getting paid to EDA because they're purchasing an improved property.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Appreciate it. We want to hear the resolution while we're waiting for the projector to reboot. The reject.
That's right.
Projector that's rejected our PowerPoint.
Whereas the Economic Development Authority of the City of Portsmouth, Virginia entered into that certain purchase and sale agreement dated March 19, 2013, as subsequently amended by the First Amendment dated May 1st, 2014, and assigned to Midtown Marketplace LLC by that certain assignment of agreements attached as an exhibit to the First Amendment, the purchase agreement, and whereas, subject to the terms and conditions wherein the purchase agreement provided for the conveyance of that certain parcel generally described as parcel D-4 of Midtown Marketplace, as more importantly defined with reference to the purchase agreement and other agreements and instruments referenced therein the property, to Midtown Marketplace LLC, a Virginia Limited Liability Company, Midtown, and whereas the purchase price for the property shall be provided in the purchase agreement, approximately $625,000, but to be calculated more exactly based on the closing date using the formula provided in the purchase agreement, and whereas the parties have completed their due diligence under the purchase agreement and as prepared to close on conveyance of the property, and whereas the conveyance and development of the property will provide substantial benefits to Portsmouth. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved that the execution and delivery of the following documents, agreements, and instruments by the chair, the vice chair, or the assistant secretary as and when deemed necessary or desirable in their sole discretion is hereby authorized and approved. A, warranty deed conveying the property to Midtown or its designee. B, certificate of non-foreign status and seller certificate and substantially the board attached as exhibits to the purchase agreement. And C, settlement statement, owner's affidavit, and such other documents, agreements, and instruments as shall be necessary or desirable in the sole discretion of the chair in furtherance of conveyance of the property in compliance with the terms and conditions of the purchase agreement. 2, the chair, vice chair, and assistant secretary of the EDA are each hereby authorized to take such further action and execute such further documents and instruments as may be necessary or desirable in furtherance of the development of the property. 3, this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption.
Commissioners, we have a visual, we've heard the amendment. If there are no questions, we entertain a motion to accept the resolution.
Well, I do have a question.
Question?
It says to be calculated more exactly. Using a formula provided. What was the formula provided in the purchase agreement? I mean, is there a working paper to show us what that formula was?
It's in the agreement. It's the price per acre plus the amount that was withheld at the original closing, plus interest on the amount that was withheld at the original closing. The reason it's in there is to be calculated more exactly is that the initial calculation that we received from the purchaser is slightly higher than I calculated. So I want to go back and make sure that we have the exactly right formula. But it's an interest rate applied to an exact amount that was withheld, and that's where the calculation will come in.
Well, I feel we should have seen that, because some of us were not on the board when that formula was fleshed out, and it would have been of importance to see visually the calculation of the formula that you arrived versus what they proposed, so we would know more about it, since it is referenced in the resolution. And you don't have the working paper with you to share it?
I don't have the agreement with me, no.
Commissioners, would you, like to receive that formula by email or?
No,
did you?
because the way we look at it right now, as Mr. Miller was saying, is that it's we're entering into an agreement with the title company. This could be 600 or 630,000. I think we're splitting hairs here. So I think we should move forward. Let's get it out, and then let them calculate the formula between here and the seller, and go from there.
Well, let me say this, I would like to see the formula sent to me via email.
Formula, and Commissioner Hines, your concerns?
Actually, I just wanted, if we could just have this as an informational piece, maybe at our next meeting, but when we start getting closer to closing, what that total dollar amount was.
And some of those figures may change, I think, at closing, if there's
Right,
no
that's why I'm
lock
curious
rates,
to see
there's
the
no
working
rate
paper.
locked in, you know, that
Exactly.
we won't know what the actual, purchase price will be.
Once it's finalized, I'd just like to have that as
As a part of the,
informational piece.
part of the.
Just an informational piece.
Correct, good point.
So it might be because of how the interest is accrued, whether it be daily, monthly, weekly.
Right.
So if you're coming off, it might be monthly.
I think they actually, we had capped the amount of the original
Okay.
pullback, and I think they forgot that and included a little bit more.
Okay.
That wasn't actually on that, but that's what we're looking into.
So there's certainly, some variables that we need to take into account, and, Commissioner Hines, you made a great point at the final, step where we are, at the selling of the property, conveying, completing the process. That formulas, will be presented. Ms. Commissioner Jiggets, if you'd like to see that sooner, then, Council Miller, will be able to provide you what,
Yes,
was decided on previously.
yes, I
We
would
can forward a
definitely
copy
want
of
to
that
see
contract
that
that
calculated
I
formula from the
executed
working paper.
2 years
Sure.
ago,
Okay.
just immediately following this meeting.
Sure, okay. All right, thank you for your comments. This, item is up for vote, Commissioners. So is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries, resolution is passed.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll move to our next item, and it is 710 Crawford Street, and Mr. Miller, you're up again.
Take one. Where's this down?
Is there a slide on this one?
Yes, thank you.
710 Crawford Street is a small, well, not small, it's the property really right next to, north of the Breeden development property. And approximately, let's see, January, February, a year ago, there was a desire to have the property conveyed to EDA and to have the city fund a demolition of the property. There were police in those offices. They're now vacant. The idea was as soon as they were vacated, the city would provide money to demolish the building, and we'd have a nice vacant developable parcel for marketing. Council acted on it to convey the property to EDA. EDA acted on it to accept the property from the city. There's a cooperation agreement executed between the parties on it, and we went ahead and we conveyed the property, we deeded the property from the city to EDA. And then got into budget season, there were changes in direction, and there's not a pot of city funds to demolish the property. So essentially EDA is currently owning that parcel with a vacant structure on it, and there's no definite date on when the city will have money to demolish the structure. So, yes, sir.
Any idea what it would cost to demolish?
Engineering is looking at that for us and getting some preliminary ideas.
In the interim, there's risk to EDA from holding a vacant property like that. We would not have to take any further council action, just if EDA were to flip the property back to the city, the property could ultimately be flipped back to EDA when demolition is ready, without additional council action. So this is a housekeeping matter to authorize the chair to execute a deed conveying the property back to the city. And that's the gist of it.
Commissioner Kelly?
We have two different documents in front of us. Do we have-
700 to 710 Crawford Street at the top.
Yes.
Yep.
It looks like there's an amendment or a change perhaps between the two
We
that we
have
got.
two.
Right, there's an initial draft that went out. Ms. Butler had some comments on it, and that's reflected in the second draft.
So the second draft is the one that's half the length.
The shorter, yeah, correct.
Okay. And it looks like the conversation just basically said instead of the EDA, going back to the EDA to market the property, it looks like that was removed. What other changes is what? Because I know we're probably gonna act on this pretty quick. I wanna make sure.
Yeah, it's just simply the detail, the discussion on the insurance and liability aspects of it.
It explains a little bit of the why, the decrease in the expenses.
Yeah, exactly.
They just took the fluff out.
Yeah.
Let's see what's going.
Okay, Commissioner Hines is concerned?
I think it would be extremely, Commissioner Bailey's comment about question of how much to demolish this property comes very much into play. It is a very good piece of property there and could be very attractive. I would like to personally look these documents over, because I don't really like getting documents the day of and ask to act on them right then, especially ones that are about half the length. So I'd ask that we table this till next month, so we can get a little bit of information regarding demolition and have the commission have an opportunity to review this document.
If I may, just a point of clarification on the demolition cost will be incurred by the city, not the EDA.
But what I'm saying, the reason I asked the question is that if the city doesn't have the funds, we own the building. We as a body need to make the decision, are we willing to write the check to demolish that building, develop that real estate? Instead of us handing it back to the city and then having engineering coming to us and saying, well, it's gonna cost you two seashells and a piece of bubble gum.
Well, engineering is gathering some quotes, and we've been working with finance. Finance is well aware and is looking at ways to incorporate it into the current city budget. Am I correct? Ms. Miller?
was going to refer back to Mr. Miller's question or concern in that the property right now is in the hands of the EDA. The EDA currently does not have the property insured. For safety reasons, the piece that he's bringing right now, which is as you said, a quick matter of conveyance to protect the property, instead of having it here right now, unprotected and a liability to the EDA. That's the point that he has just made.
Are you sure this property is not insured?
I am only speaking to what our legal has advised us. I cannot say that I can assure anything. I have the faith and trust in our legal authority.
It's still under the city insurance policy, which is a measure of protection, but from a strict legal standpoint, it'd be best to convey it back to the city so the EDA is not in the chain, so that the insurance company can't try to make an argument that EDA is not the city and therefore not insured.
So it is insured by the city, so
Is
it would be,
insured.
yes, the city has
By
a,
the city.
Yeah, but at the moment, is the property insured?
yes, by the
That's my
city,
question.
by the
Okay.
city. So, but we own it, so it's like a mismatch.
So you're telling me that us as an EDA body, we don't have a blanket commercial property?
You can't get insurance on a vacant building. No one can.
Right.
That's the issue.
That's the issue. We absolutely have insurance.
Correct, you're 100% correct on that.
You have
You
a
won't.
vacant.
How long has it been vacant?
Just a few months since the police moved.
Sometimes the insurance company doesn't know that.
We have, our vice chair, Commissioner Don Thomason, who would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to get some clarification, I think it might help. As I understand it, the city does not have the authority to execute a sale of the property. That's why they transformed us. We lose nothing by conveying it back to the city. It costs us nothing to do it. It can be conveyed back to us at a moment's notice. We can continue to market the property if we want to. We can explore cost of demolition if we want to. We can continue to operate with it as if it was ours. This just gives us a higher level of protection to the property. It's not attached to us from a liability standpoint, and it would reduce any cost if we try to do anything with it at this point as far as insurance or cleanup or anything. It takes all that away from us, doesn't incur any additional expenses to the city. So Mr. Miller said it was a housekeeping issue. I agree, that's the way that we should approach it. Additionally, I'd love to hear the discussion of what the demolition costs are. They may be significantly lower than we thought, but just a reminder to our commissioners, we have a pending expense that we don't know what it is, that we're waiting for action from the city attorney's office on. That could deplete our funds, and so right now, until we have that answer, we couldn't even consider doing any other expenses. So I think this is a smart move, just to move it back when we're ready to do something with it.
Thank you for your comments. We have Commissioner Hines, but before your comments enter, I think I remember when we were demolishing the IC Norcom property for us to build the Kroger marketplace, and that was a larger parcel of building. I think it was somewhere between 10 and 30,000. Commissioner Kelly, if you could.
That was for the house across the street.
Those are
Okay,
the
for the
houses
houses.
across the street.
Okay,
The city covered the demolition on Norcom.
but it was
before
like
completed.
$10,000.
I have no idea what the Norcom was, but 10,000 of the individual homes that parallel Frederick Boulevard
Okay.
that the EDA and the PPOC acquired that became the linear park, they were approximately 10,000 per house for demolition.
And how old are these buildings?
Probably the
62?
50s, 60s,
No,
they're
the issue
built by
about
George
the
T. McLean.
asbestos comes into play with the demolition.
Okay, we have Commissioner Hines.
I guess my concern is not necessarily what you're speaking of, Commissioner Thompson. My concern is the receipt of substantially changed documents and then asking me to vote on them that day. That's a concern of mine. And while I agree it's a housekeeping item, it certainly is something I think that if we're going to be sent out packets, well before and expected of us to do our research and homework and do those type of things, then it should be incumbent on us to have information that's ready to act on that day and not have things change on us. So regardless of the fact that I may support this, I will be voting no for it because the fact that I do not have.
Okay, because we did get, resolution 717 in our packet, this
Right.
was an amended one, so,
I understand that.
okay.
And I have a question about the
Vote on
amended
item.
one. Who's next?
Okay.
I have,
All right, Commissioner
I have a
Jacobs.
question about the amended one. Why did we take out, unless I'm overlooking it, whereas once a funding source for demolition has been identified, the parties can proceed with reconveyance? Why was that taken out in the, revised one? To me, it should stay in there.
Yeah, I mean, I have no objection with however the board wants to proceed. I can tell you that technically, Ms. Butler was traveling on a college trip with her children at the end of last week, beginning of this week. So the original resolution went out without her review. Had a conversation this morning where she was not comfortable with the degree of, or didn't feel like it was appropriate to get into the degree of specificity we got into on the insurance and that type of issue. Fair
Without
enough.
the funding source being identified, that seems to be the reason why it originally.
It's only out because it was later in the resolution and it was just simply clearing out some of the details. If the board wants to adopt the original resolution, there's no objection from anyone to adopting the original resolution.
Well, I mean, to me, based on the limited amount of information we received, it seemed that it would be only appropriate to have it in there about once a funding source is identified for the demolition, because that's the reason why, at this point, the idea of letting it flow back to the city. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it should stay in there.
Okay, so Commissioners, this is the original one is the one that we received with our packet and the one that, was reviewed by us prior to this meeting. If it is your pleasure to proceed with the original amendment, then we can do that.
May I make a motion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion we adopt the amended resolution to include the verbiage about the funding source being identified and the property to be reconveyed. I think does that meet your concerns?
Yes, it would.
Okay, so there's a motion, is there a second? Okay,
It's basically just adding this.
Let's keep this one.
there is a motion to, approve the resolution, that is amended, adding in, the funding source, and there is a second. Is there any unreadiness? Ready for the question?
The first was Mr. Kelly and the second was.
Commissioner Thompson.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
No.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Now we'll move to our next agenda item, which is our FIG program at 600 Crawford. And we'll get an update, from Mrs. Butler, and that will require a vote.
Yes. This is a item relative to a FIG you have already approved. You all voted and approved 2 facade improvement grants for 600 Crawford Street. That is the new Wells Fargo building. They approached us with a modification. It does not change the dollar amount one bit. One of their items came in under budget. I believe it was the lighting. And as a result, they'd like to spend a little bit more money on the railing. We do have a representative of the ownership here to answer any questions. This is an item that I had Ms. France review in my absence. Again, she has a wealth of experience running incentive programs, having started and run the entire incentive program at the Port Authority. And she thoroughly reviewed it and consulted with the owner and consulted with your legal counsel, and they both feel comfortable that it does not change the intent of the grant, it does not change the dollar amount of the grant. It's simply that in the records that we have and the rules that we follow, any modifications to any grant must come back before this body. And so this is really another sort of housekeeping, technical situation. And I'd ask Ms. France to offer any other comments, or Mr. Miller, your counsel. Do you have anything else to share?
No additional comments?
No.
Commissioners all understood?
Mhm.
Okay. Commissioner?
Again, this goes back to the original comment I had about the resolution that we just voted on. This item, I did inquire about additional information to the group on Friday, I believe it was, and a simple no was basically given to me. Again, really no opportunity to vet this, to understand why we were going to be asked to be voting on this. Again, I think that if you're going to ask us to review this information and take time out of our schedules to do that, then I think some documentation needs to be forwarded. I will support this because I understand it, but I do think it's pertinent that when we get these type of information, we get the background information that helps us better prepare for these meetings.
I think in what you're saying is even if we've gotten information
Before.
to still
To refer
carry
back
forward
to-
with the information, and I think that is very reasonable, request, Commissioner Hines.
I just have to throw out maybe a suggestion. When you have your pre-EDA meetings, is it the Friday prior to?
Yes.
Is it possible to maybe move that to the Wednesday prior to?
We had this one last Tuesday.
Yeah, we did meet earlier.
I would just have one clarity, Commissioner Hines, if you could help. I didn't understand what your request was, so I think if you clarified, say what it was.
I apologize, I thought you were looking
Supporting
for additional
documentation.
documentation and application or pictures.
No, I mean, it was an ask of any sort of documentation, any sort of understanding of what was being asked for. You know, a simple, what you just talked about could have been more than sufficient. I think it could have just gone out in our package as even just a little paragraph. You asked for this. We've had a request from the owner that we're gonna wanna move from this point to this point. I think that would be, to me, very helpful.
Again, I apologize, I thought you were
understand
looking for
it's-
specific documents like an application or renderings or things of that nature. My fault, I do apologize.
And that's fine, I just think that we need to make sure.
More clarity on why.
Right, I mean, if you're gonna ask us to vote and you're asking us to look at things, then we need to have
Know what we're
that.
looking
Right, even if it's come forward, we still need the additional
I'll take it.
information.
Thank you.
This is probably not the place for it, but, and I know staff is overwhelmed, but, by the beginning of next year, I would like to see the authority commissioners receive their package before Friday. You know, because not getting it till Friday evening, it's too close to the date of the meeting.
You have the weekend, you have 2 days on the weekend. You
Andrew.
have 2 days on the weekend to review it. I think what you're asking, Ms. Butler, to do, I think it's unreasonable. You have the weekend, you have 2 days.
What I'm asking is that we try to receive our package before Friday evening. That is unacceptable to me as a commissioner.
And it's just been, it's always
And I-
been done with the weekend, and we also have
Right,
the
but
Monday,
that's not
you know,
acceptable. And my understanding is for
Packets
council.
have always gone out on Friday.
on Friday, yeah, so.
Even before electronic age, when we used to hand deliver them, they went out on Fridays.
Oh, they do.
I mean, the financials would have to be a month behind to do that. I mean, we would need.
Yeah,
So if
we
it
need
went
to
out
do
like
that.
on a Wednesday, you're saying that would, impact the financials that much?
You don't get bank statements, you don't get, I mean, you need some time to do it.
Waiting on information.
2 days, a 2 days window is going to impact you all that greatly.
Commissioner
It's not the only thing we do.
Mhm.
And so you wanna make sure you do it correctly and have it checked.
I understand that, Ms. Kelly, you know I understand that, that's why I said we could work
Okay,
towards.
Commissioners,
One
yeah,
moment,
yeah.
one moment.
Mhm.
I understand that, Ms. Kelly, but I also, gave us a time frame
by maybe beginning of next year, something to work towards. And, you know, I understand that we're not your only concern. I understand that.
I appreciate that, but we
Don't
do,
see.
okay, we do get bank statements on a certain time, right?
Yes, I understand that
Yeah.
too.
Perhaps we can bring that up at the retreat when we have it.
Right,
There'd be
yeah,
a
so
conversation,
we,
kind of an in-house planning.
Exactly. And we appreciate all of the comments, and meeting, you know, even if we had our meeting, Commissioner Kelly, you know, before the Friday, you know, the week before, as Ms. Kelly did mention, and even in my own business, and trying to get them to the accountant to get a profit and loss statement for, you know, the month or the quarter, you know, the banks don't provide the information until after a certain
Right,
time.
you know, and
So
I
it is-
understand all of that, but I'm, you know, I wasn't talking about a week before,
Right.
like
Just
2
2
days
days.
before, like that Wednesday,
Right.
receiving the packet
Right.
versus receiving it on Friday evening. Even if we could receive it Friday morning, we get the packet Friday evening, so that we can have enough time, if we have questions, we can contact staff at the department, so that we could get some additional information. So, no, because I wanna know, is it possible to even get our packets on Friday morning? And who has the authority to answer that question?
Staff will
Let
certainly
us
do
look at it,
everything
and
we
you-
can.
I would say that, we've heard, Commissioner Jiggett's, our timeframes are set
Right.
based on getting the
The
information that's needed by the
To
time
process
to
everything.
process. So let us look at it and we'll
Yeah, we'll take
advise
every,
at the
we
next
will make
meeting.
every effort.
Thank you for the discussion.
Okay, I would be even, you know, satisfied with a Friday morning versus Friday evening late.
We will make every effort. I think they went out at 2 this past Friday, so we'll see if we can't move that up until tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, thank you for the discussions. We need to, is there a motion to approve, the fee changes?
Move to approve.
Second.
That was Mr. Hines and Mr.
Okay,
Bailey.
correct.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries, changes are approved. Again, it does not alter the intent of the FIG, it does not alter the financial obligation of the FIG, and again, my apologies for not clarifying. I thought you were looking for additional physical documents and applications and what have you, so please forgive me.
Perfectly fine, just wanted to make sure
Thank you, Commissioners.
it's in the right direction.
Our next agenda item is our, local incentive program. We've affectionately called it LIP. And we're looking to, add an ad hoc committee, and we've already had 2 commissioners who have shown an interest in serving on this committee, Commissioner Bailey and Commissioner Kelly. Just want to know that your pleasure, your interest is still there.
Yes.
Okay, so that, ad hoc committee has been identified, so they will begin to look at our local incentive program.
Staff will circulate some dates, council, returning Mr. Miller, Ms. France and I will join you on that. We'll set up 2 or 3 meetings between now and May to be able to put together some recommendations, modifications, tweaks, things like if there are things that maybe you feel could be handled administratively, or things that should not be handled administratively, and tweaks like we've done in prior years.
Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Madam Chair,
Sir.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but maybe is it appropriate for each individual commissioner to get with these 2 commissioners
Sure.
with any of those
Absolutely.
suggestions that I might have?
Sure.
I didn't know if I needed to put it out to the rest of the body. Is that something that you prefer for us to do?
To provide the, if you have some input,
Right. You
into
wanted to
some
go to the
suggestions.
whole
Yeah, and I
body,
think
or
they'll
just
call
those 2?
for, suggestions.
I would imagine, we haven't met yet, but I would imagine what we do be, that'd be probably one of the pivotal points, be reach out to the commission.
Right.
Get your feedback and your thoughts, because we're the first folks to vote on it and look at it every month.
Sure.
Over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of input. You know, from nonprofit status to apartments to you name it, this is an opportunity to clean it up a little bit.
I mean, like, for example, what we just voted on, I think that could easily be done administratively, you know, kind of thing. That could be-
Yeah, well, we definitely want to have all that input.
Well, I will say that, as a note to file to the 2 of you, I have some thoughts about and concerns about seasonal businesses
Okay.
being able to apply. We had a seasonal business where we had approved,
The snow.
and that bothers me, that they are only open seasonally. So that is something I would hope we would take a look at.
Since we're throwing out initial thoughts, it has always been a question in my mind as to why the area designated for the receipt of these grants is so focused. I understand our efforts to give a certain look or create an appeal leading up towards City Hall in our downtown area, but I think that we should consider opening this thing up citywide. People have the onset and the information and they want to give it a shot, and they should be given the opportunity. We all citizens are the same.
I agree with that. I say rising tides lifts all ships.
Everybody come over in Churchland, I should be able to utilize a FIG, security grants, whatever's available. We all pay taxes.
And I mean, if I
Yeah, so
may add
we look
one
at it
last
too.
comment on that, I think that if we changed it from a monthly approval to, say, a quarterly approval, and a grading scale, we can still minimize, that we can look at our whole dollar amount and look at each project and say, this project in Churchland might have merit, but if we just approve them on a monthly basis like we have, we don't have the opportunity to really look at them and grade them out. I think you're right. I'd like to hear that, but at the same time, we only have a small pot of money, so to figure out a way to do that. I'm sure these two gentlemen are gonna bring us some great recommendations.
Yeah, I don't wanna drag this out, but we did have a strategic planning committee, we had a strategic planning meeting, where we gave staff clear direction as what we wanted them to execute. We came to agreement as a body about what we were gonna do, that even narrowing the focus, because nobody actually really wanted to, but that was all brought up in strategic planning. We can sort of look at bringing it up again, so we can go back to that and make sure everybody's up to speed with why those decisions were made and where they came from. The grading system is in place already at the direction that we gave staff to do that, so they have a grading system already in it. So some of these things have already been discussed, and we've already given direction to staff to do that.
Yeah, we did.
Well, I mean, I think the
George did
grade-
a recommendation.
I think the grading system's fine, I'm just
Yes.
thinking, instead of looking at it on a monthly basis, we look at them on a quarterly basis and grade them out in that way, maybe open the.
Whether accepting or failing, accepting or rejecting grant offers on a quarterly basis. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what the commissioners is, yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
bring it to them.
they're in the
They can-
committee,
They
yeah.
can flush it out. They may like it, they may not, but.
I think
So we have the committee set in place, and they're gonna do some of the initial groundwork, and then they'll present back to us,
For the sake of time,
yes.
commissioners, you can be assured, Erin and I are gonna do everything that benefits the city.
Right.
And we certainly want input from everybody. And there's absolutely no reason for us to not include everybody and address anyone's concerns. And if you wanna look at Churchland, if someone uses the word Churchland, give us a reason. Why? Show us, help us.
Yes.
Because we pay taxes and we're in the city of Portsmouth. Not me personally, but any citizen of Portsmouth, Virginia should have an opportunity to utilize this fund. And first come, first served. When the coffers are empty, that's what it is. The same as it would be along this corridor. You don't have to change anything. Whoever applies first and with the barrier, give it to them.
All right, so we appreciate the initial comments going to the committee, the ad hoc committee, and we look forward to their work and your continued input, for a final product. Okay. Now we'll move into our new business, section, and it is another ad hoc committee, it's the budget committee, it's the budget season. We need to identify, 2 persons to serve on the budget ad hoc committee. You will be working
Yeah.
with.
Ms. Jiggets, you have the concern?
You know what, let me tell you something, I had a conversation before the meeting. Any budget committee in the United States of America, you're gonna always have your chairperson and your treasurer on that budget committee.
But we're changing it, we're opening to commissioners. I think you would be wonderful for the job.
We're gonna go with proper internal controls
And
and
how
policies.
we've done it, in the past, the chair has the privilege to appoint someone from the commission,
And you
and I'm
understand what I
asking.
just said?
And I understand what you said, and I'm saying that I have the privilege to appoint someone from the committee. So I will ask if any commissioners are first, willing to serve, and, in addition to our treasurer. So that's where we are, so the floor is open, and I will ask first, are there any commissioners willing to serve?
Oh, okay.
Okay, we have one,
You know what, I'll do it with Andrew. I look forward to
That's
this.
the only reason I did it, because I knew you would join.
I look forward to this.
But we have two.
You got,
I
you got
look forward to this.
Staff
I
support
cannot
will
wait.
include Ms. Kelly in that.
Exactly, okay. And staff support will be our, director and our finance director.
We'll circulate
Commissioner
it.
Bailey?
You have the most to say about the finances. Be involved in the budget.
How many people?
We will only have two. We can only have two with
So that means the
staff.
chairwoman would not be a part of it. Okay.
See, the chair should be, I mean,
I'm at every debriefing meeting, I'm gonna get it anyway. I'm gonna get whatever you all present.
But listen, I look forward to serving
Okay.
with Commissioner Bailey. I cannot wait.
Staff will circulate some dates that work for both commissioners and with the goal of presenting a draft budget at the April meeting for a final adoption at the May meeting so that it can be rolled up and incorporated into the city's FEMA system.
Thank you, commissioners, for your willingness to serve, Commissioner Jiggets and Commissioner Bailey. Now we're at our agenda item where we're, ready for our closed meeting, and we have a resolution to go into closed meeting.
Thank you,
Resolution of intent to meet in closed meeting. Whereas the Virginia Freedom of Information Act provides that the Board of Commissioners may hold closed meeting for certain purposes set forth in paragraph 2.2-3711A of the Code of 1950 and as amended code. And whereas the board desires to enter into a closed meeting for the purpose set forth below. And whereas in compliance with requirements of the code, the topics to be discussed are set forth below in the subparagraphs of paragraph 2.2-3711A, authorizing discussion of the topics in closed session are set forth in parentheses after each topic. Now therefore be it resolved that in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and the above referenced sections of the code, the Board of Commissioners shall meet in closed meeting on March 15th, 2016 for the purpose of consulting with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel, the comments of Portsmouth Center 7, and for the purpose of discussion or consideration of the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public initially, the financial interest of the government unit would be adversely affected. Properties for resale listing agent RFP 6.
So moved.
And there's a second.
Second.
Just one moment. Okay, Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
You are now in closed session. 2-3712, point D of the Code of Virginia requires a certificate by the Commissioners of the authority that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the Act. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the following certification shall be included in the authority's minutes of the meeting, along with any statement regarding any alleged departure in accordance with section 2.2-3712.d of the 1950 Code of Virginia as amended. Each commissioner, unless his or her prior contrary statement is in the minutes of this meeting, hereby certifies that to the best of his or her knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting by the commissioners.
So moved.
Okay, move and second.
Was that Mr. Hines?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Bailey?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Mr. Pitts?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lucasberg?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
We're back in open session.
Motion that we accept the committee's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, motion to accept the committee's recommendation to proceed with the contract for a listing agent. Mr. Bailey?
No.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Jiggets?
No.
Mr. Kelly?
No.
Ms. Lucas Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-3.
Okay, Commissioners, there is no other, business before us. We'd like to congratulate, Commissioner Thompson
Yes.
on a
That
new
was
delivery.
baby boy.
You got a little boy?
Not me.
Grandson.
Oh, you have a grandson?
Grandson.
Oh, I'll see.
That's what I thought that was.
Oh,
That's all the name, I'm like, is that his Julius? That's
Yeah.
Julius' baby. Julius Thompson, the fourth, right?
You got a fourth?
Right. Okay.
And just a reminder that the State of the City is on April 13th, and that will be the Wednesday before your regularly scheduled April 19th meeting. So
I'm
just
sorry, say that again, I
The
apologize.
State of the City is on Wednesday, April 13th, and I believe many of you have RSVP'd to Lee, and so we'll see you there.
It's 12 o'clock.
Ready for adjournment?
All right, thank you all.